Hello there, welcome to a special discussion on Budget 2019. The budget was presented on Monday under the theme Transforming the Economy, Empowering People, Building Sustainable Communities for the Good Life. It is to the tune of $300.7 billion. I have in studio with me Bishop Juan Edghill, former Minister within the Ministry of Finance, and of course a Member of Parliament, Sheila Verasammy. We're going to be talking about the budget generally, and of course we're going to focus on some key sectors and what exactly is in the budget for the people of Guyana, because budgets usually, in my personal view, should be something that contains programs, initiatives, and so forth that are going to uplift the people. And it should start with focusing on the people at the bottom, at the poorer end of the scale, to see how you can uplift them. So, Bishop Edghill, welcome to the program. Ms. Verasammy, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so I want to start off by a general overview. What are your thoughts on the budget? Bishop, I want to start with you.
Well, thank you, Eddie, and greetings to all my Guyanese brothers and sisters. I think the place for us to start the discussion is where the minister started. The minister situated his budget presentation in three specific contexts. Number one, we are getting ready for first oil. Number two, it is penultimate budget before constitutionally due elections in 2020. And number three, it's a budget that is coming as Guyana prepares to celebrate its 50th year as a republic. So the minister situated his presentation that lasted 5 hours or some. It was so long that the time didn't really matter. It was just so long. He situated his presentation in a particular context, and he spoke that his budget is speaking to the issue of transforming the economy, empowering people, and building sustainable communities. So having heard that, I think some immediate questions arise. How are we transforming this economy? What did Budget 2019 do to prepare for what the APNU AFC seems to be touting as the only thing in town, gas and oil? Nothing new. How are we empowering people? When you talk about empowering people, the first thing you have to talk about is job creation. Welfare. A government needs to take care of welfare. The pensioners, the disabled, youth, women, and all the vulnerable groups. But by and large, people don't need mere charity. People need opportunities so that they can have wealth to the limit that they would limit themselves, not for a government to determine you deserve this or you deserve that. So job creation is important. I have gone through the budget. I have been contemplating what was said and listening to the minister talking about Go Invest and the facilitating of several $1 billion of investment that would create 1,700 jobs, which is a number that is doubtful because they will have to answer where these jobs are, in which sector, and the rest of it. But in terms of job creation, this budget has failed miserably. And of course, this is not just job creation in a vacuum, but job creation for young people, especially our young people who are coming out of university. And Eddie and all of Guyana, we are aware that Guyana don't only have the University of Guyana anymore. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of offshore universities that are operating here. And I admire and I commend the drive of our young people for higher education. So our young people are not just merely stopping at a sound secondary education, or even beginning stages of tertiary level education, they're going for their master's degree, they're going for their doctorate, and they're really pursuing what are the jobs in this new transforming economy that are being created for these kinds of young people. I'm doubtful, I haven't seen it, and we're going to talk about that as we go through. The building of sustainable communities, you know, I would have thought that we're talking here more than just merely repairing roads, building bridges, or cleaning canals. Those are rudimentary things. If we're talking about sustainable communities and building sustainable communities, we're talking here, especially in the context of the good life. It's like you have the American dream. Everybody in Guyana, they also have a dream. The dream of every parent in Guyana is to ensure that their children do better than them. Our parents sacrifice, whether the mother is a security guard, or the father's a taxi driver, or just a laborer, to send their children to extra lessons, to get outstanding grades at CSEC and at CAPE, and to get into university. They don't just want to see their children at the roadside selling on a sweetie tray. They did that. They don't just want to hear that they're a sweeper cleaner. They did that. It's nothing wrong with these jobs, but the dream of parents is to produce children that are better than them, and they're making the sacrifices. This budget don't cater for that emerging energy and excitement that exists among the parents to see their children and to celebrate their children's successes. Eddie, to put it this way, this budget lacks imagination. There is not one thing in this budget that captivated the admiration of the people of Guyana. To throw in a little goodies here and little goodies there, which seems to be the front page stories, means how much at the bottom we are scraping to find something to excite the people of Guyana. Because we wanted to hear a budget that is now 300 billion plus. It would have meant that between 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, this government would have spent $1.3 trillion.
Where?
In Guyana.
In the last few
Where?
years.
Well, we probably have to discuss that, because between 2015 to 2018, it was $1,000 billion or $1 trillion. Now you're bringing on another 300 billion. So that's $1.3 trillion that you are spending. And if you would have spent you spent $1 billion, and you have an intention to spend another 300 billion, nothing that is happening in the country now is new. Nothing is new. Everything inherited from the previous administration, and some of it has really been hodgepodge and messed up, renegotiated. You're getting less and paying more, and we're really in trouble. So what in this budget would now say that we're spending all this money, we got something to show that Guyana is climbing. We are a developing country. Developing means that you must be making incremental movements towards becoming developed. We can't forever remain developing. And people throwing around how Guyana's GDP will increase and standard of living will increase because of oil and gas is just fairy tales. Is what I call ice cream promises. You know, you promise the children on Friday, I'll give you ice cream, and everybody get excited with ice cream, but it will only last for 15 minutes if you take your time to eat it. We don't want ice cream promises.
I want to stop you there, and I want to ask you one last question. I want you to describe the 2019 budget, the $300.7 billion 2019 budget, in one word before I move to Ms. Verasammy.
Extravagance, waste, and missed priorities.
So you give me 3 words, and I guess you can describe it with much more than that. Ms. Verasammy, I want to bring you in here. I want to hear your views with regards to the budget. Of course, we're going to zero in on the individual areas as we go along, but what are your thoughts generally on budget 2019?
Well, first of all, like many persons sitting in the parliament that day, including their own members of parliament, we were all flabbergasted by the fact that expectations were there, that people says give them a chance. They're now learning. They have this opportunity to do better, so we were all waiting on the better. So even their own people were not cheering them on until you hear one, two things. The $1,000 they give to the pensioners, they were loud cheers as if that will make a great impact. Since they got into government, they talk about this thing called a good life. Apologetically in the 2018 budget, they talk about, the Minister of Finance spoke about all the reasons why the good life is not yet offered. If you read this document, it's a beautiful document to read. It's utopian, purely utopian. It has so much dreams in it, but like all of us, when we sleep in the night and we wake up in the morning, we have to face reality. Like many people, they go get drunk in a bar and they wake up next morning, the reality still faces them and they get something called a headache. This is the budget. This budget is a headache for women in this country because
I think she has a better one-word description.
A headache.
Because I listened to the minister for 4 hours, 22 minutes, and I've gone home and I took this document with me with a heavy heart and I said, I must have misheard something here. So I tumbled it. I have lots of notes here. And I'm trying to find in this budget that something that would describe what this government is going to do for 50.3% of this population. 50.3% of the population are women. Out of this, you have about 50,000 or more women, including a small percentage of men, who are single parent. These are the people who this government was making a big hullabaloo about. They need jobs and they need all these things, daycare and so on. There's nothing here to talk about creating jobs for them, creating opportunities for them. While women can probably be at home, take care of the children, and ensuring, like Bishop just said, those children go on to have a better education so that they can have a better life. Who is this good life for really? I'm not understanding it. When we want to speak about empowering people, we have to talk about one very important aspect of this economy, and it is called human resource. 50.3% of the population are human resources. This previous government had a massive program called housing, and in that housing project, women were given land. I was taught from a child growing up, your stability is rooted in owning a plot of land. This government took that away from the poor people of this country. I was taught poverty can be eradicated by climbing the ladder, climb out of poverty with the ladder called education. Now, through the People's Progressive Party, we have created so much opportunities for women to have education to the point where about 65% of our women are graduating. Where is the job for those women? Now let me take one step backwards. What is going to happen to that 30,000 people who they have, for reasons that are unimaginable, thrown out of jobs? This budget hasn't spoken a single word about all those sugar workers who, and we passed it in the budget the other day for them to pay the sugar workers, you know, their severance. They haven't been paid as yet. But it's Christmas. Christmas is supposed to be Santa Claus coming and bearing gifts. But we have a Grinch who didn't bear any gifts here, what has happened in this budget, examine it very carefully with all the smooth words and the beautiful descriptions of what is going to happen between now and 2040. We're not even talking about 2019 in the budget, we're talking about 2040 with the Green State Development Strategy. Those women, how are they going to send their children to school tomorrow? How are those men going to provide for their families? I'm talking about the people who are thrown out of jobs. Eddie, people are committing suicide because they have no alternative. This budget does not address that. The other day, this is the month where we have, since the 25th of November, Sunday gone, until the 10th of December, 16 days of activism against violence. Only recently, a woman who was mother of 7 children were slashed all over the place, and the man hung himself right up on suicide, Swan. Comrade, there's nothing in this budget that talks about how we're going to handle domestic violence that is closely related to suicide. We saw it right there without one last incident within the 16 days of activism. What are we doing as a country? We are making a lot of promises. They went into government on a slogan called corruption. They, every now and again, when they do a bad thing like they did in this budget, they would arrest one of our leaders with trump-up charges, and so people's attention will be diverted from what they're doing. Let me tell you, let me drag one more issue into this. Local government elections has shown very clearly where they are and where the People's Progressive Party Civic is. And that they cannot digest until now. They can't live. It's gall. It's clogging their throat. They can't breathe properly. It's the news that is tightening as the day goes by. So what they're going to do? They're going to continue to use this whole thing of corruption that they spent $200 million to do a forensic audit. And they're bringing up trump-up charges about Pradoville. Where is the real corruption that they went to the campaign with? And they went to the campaign about the good life. And I want to say this, you know why their people didn't vote for them? It's because the good life that they promised their people, people are waking up to the true facts. And people are saying very, very clearly that they were better off under the PPP than they are today. And this budget is offering the PPP supporters nothing, and it's offering their supporters nothing. But if you were to go a little closer into this budget and you look at some of the projects that are in here, and as we go along, if we get an opportunity, we'll talk a little bit about it. If they identify one PPP support community, they identify 5 of theirs where they're doing projects. And what they're doing, they're trying to get their people to be happy with them so that their people are going to vote for them. But I want to say infrastructural development brings some alleviation to people because they walk on good road, they got good bridges, and they may have good drains. But you know something? It doesn't put food on the table.
That's the question.
And that's the bottom line of a good life. It doesn't provide food. What provides food on the table is people having equal opportunity at jobs. And you asked earlier about jobs and payments for people. I'll leave that to Bishop to answer that a little bit.
I want to bring you in back, Bishop. I want to talk a little bit about the capital projects in the budget. The thing is, they're all lofty kind of ideas. You know, how much they're going to transform the economy and empower the people and building these communities for this so-called good life, like you rightly mentioned. And I want to say, I don't see how walking on a good road broke is going to really make a difference to you and your family. You know, while good roads and bridges and so on are fine, I
it will
think
save
the
my shoe
bottom
from
line,
getting mud.
but soon you will not be able to buy a shoe.
My stomach will be empty, and my
you might not
shoe-
be able to buy a shoe without money. So it would really save, you know. But I want us to talk a little bit about the capital projects that are in the budget.
Eddie, let me just say, I don't think the infrastructural development should be in competition with poverty alleviation.
Absolutely not.
Or it should be in competition with empowerment of people. We need both. and they need to move together, because while I would have studied for GCE with a flambeau lamp, my children don't even want to allow 15 minutes of blackout. It's a different era that we're talking about, so electricity supply and all the rest of it needs to be up to date. We have to keep that moving. But you know, the minister did what I would call fancy footworks when he read the report card, because I would think that's what he was doing, of the various sectors, and placed before the nation some pipe dreams and ice cream promises. We spoke about all these big projects as if they're happening in 2019. But let me give you the hard reality. The capital budget of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, which is where all these big projects fall under, in 2017 was $29,364,822,000. That's 2017, where we didn't have all these big fancy footworks and dangling of promises in front of the eyes of people to get some support after a whooping electoral defeat. In 2018, the capital budget of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, the actual, what they're reporting that they spent, was $24,438,367,000. So in 2018, they spent less than 2017, right, in the capital budget. In 2019, the minister is proposing figures that says he will spend $26,212,032,000, which brings a slight increase. But I want you to compare that, Eddie, to the capital budget of the Ministry of the Presidency. The capital budget of the Ministry of the Presidency in 2017 was $1,162,633,000. In 2018, the capital budget of the Ministry of the Presidency, which was last year, was $1,679,810,000. In 2019, the proposed capital budget of the Ministry of the Presidency is $3,336,239,000.
Almost
300%.
double.
No. So you know, a man like me will start asking, where is the money going?
100% increase.
Under the Ministry of the Presidency, there are two allocations for land transportation, one for $52 million and one for $38 million. That's $90 million worth of vehicles. Now, $90 million worth of vehicles, these are all duty-free vehicles. The Ministry of the President don't pay
any duty on
duties.
vehicles.
So any businessman, any reasonable sounding person, any person who bought a vehicle, no. And just last year we had issues with how many vehicles the Office of the President was buying. So you got $90 million there. Now, then we discover that under the Ministry of Citizenship, which is also in the Ministry of the Presidency, there's a capital budget for $713 million. This is a slush fund. Right there, this is a slush fund.
Because under the Ministry of the Presidency budget, this should be captured. And I think the same thing exists with regards to social cohesion.
Well, I'm coming to social cohesion now. Another slush fund exists. We are preparing, that's why the minister carefully couched his language, the context of his budget. We are preparing for our 50th Jubilee as a republic. And under the Ministry of the Presidency, social cohesion, $350 million allocated to that ministry. Now, if you're preparing for republic celebrations, that's national and other events. Now, There's a budget line called national and other events, which has also had an increase. I will talk about that in the parliament. But here you put another slush fund, 350 million. So you have 713 and you have 350. That's already $1 billion plus in slush funds.
In addition to that 3.3 billion.
It's in that 3.3 billion.
It's in that 3.3.
I'm explaining where the increase of 1.6 in 2018, how it jumped to 3.3 in 2019. Now, so when you go through this capital budget of the Ministry of the Presidency and you compare the capital budget of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, which is where they're talking about building this road to Perica, which the leader of the opposition have already spoken of immediately after, the Del Conte Road. Where is the money to build the road in the budget? It's an idea that is being floated. So the people of Region 7 start thinking, you know what? We can get a drive to Bartica, but in what year?
Election campaign.
It's not in what year. It won't happen for 2020. It won't happen for 2021. It won't happen for 2022. You know what we're talking about? A desk review. You're talking about the new Demerara Harbor Bridge, which was clouded in all kinds of corruption that ended up at the Public Procurement Commission. You know what's the budgetary allocation for the new Demerara Harbor Bridge? $100 million.
To build the bridge?
$100 million is there. There's no bridge that will be built.
But that's what I'm asking.
Again,
the $100 million
continues.
is to go again to studies.
Feasibility again.
It's to go to studies. The minister has spoken about paving the road from Linden to Lethem. And in this phase, they will go to Mabura. You know how much money has been allocated for that? 200 million.
Feasibility again.
Now,
To pave.
you know 200 million in building no road.
Studies.
This is where I get upset with this administration, because they look at the population like we are a pack of fools.
So you have
That you could come and stand up and bamboozle a nation with fancy grammar, nicely put together speeches that give you the ability to, you know, to sound like you're eloquent and you're good at rhetoric, but all you got is the gift of gab. And when you get down to the bottom line, like Sheila was saying, the taxi driver want to know that he can get business. And you don't have to sit down in the car and say, I ain't get nothing for the day. The nails technician wants to be able to say, boy, it looks like people are going to have more disposable income. They're going to be coming in here to decorate themselves and look better. The cosmetologist and the barber must be able to say, boy, things going to be looking. Because these are the people who are suffering. The shop owner must be able to say, boy, I could be able to stock because people getting more money, they're going to buy. This budget don't offer that hope.
No, but you brought out, Bishop, you brought out a very interesting point there. And I think what I'm getting, the sense I'm getting is that these things are being put out there as though we're going to build this road, we're going to build
Nothing will happen in 2019.
But it's really,
Nothing.
It's really preparatory, if not even preparatory.
Let me give you a good example, Eddie. Let me give you a good example. We left mobilized funds to build the bypass road, Ogle to Diamond.
Yeah.
$50 million
US.
US, the Indian government, through the Indian Exim Bank, was making available to the road. That money was there since before the 2015 budget, right? We are now at 2019 budget. All the minister has said
In the budget.
is that the road will no longer cost 50 million US, it will now cost 120 million US. So a 50 million road is now gone up to 120 million, and he has said that, you know, they found some swamp.
And there's no road.
They found some swamp, so because you got to pass through the swamp, it's
You got to put on another 70 million.
Well, remember with Durban Park, when they were building Durban Park, to get the parade, the soil was not as compact. So when they say attention, you could stand properly. So that ended up spending almost 500 million that is still accounted for. The Auditor General can't get receipts yet to show that. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is that you repeat a lot of things. The airport, they're now going to build a fence, they're going to build a car park, they're going to ensure the apron is completed. But it's the same old airport that you call corrupt when the PPC signed the deal, that you remodified, you reduced the scope, we're getting a renovated airport rather than a new airport. That is it.
With more costs.
They better hope to Belfield Road. You see the 4-lane expansion, and you're talking about road from the embankment, from Enmore all the way up and all the rest of it. Just tell us when.
What I want to do,
it can't happen if you don't have money attached to the rhetoric.
I want us to cover a couple of more things, but I want to ask you one question, and I think you're going to be very brief with this answer. Could you, as a member of parliament, any one of you, could you name for me and for the people who are going to be looking at this program 3 generic capital projects of this government?
That originated with them?
Yes.
I can't start.
Durban
There's
Park.
none.
Only Durban Park.
But I wouldn't even describe
Yes.
Durban Park as a capital project, because Durban Park would not be in existence 5 years from now.
It's falling
That's a
apart
wooden
already.
thing. The maintenance of it in 5 years would be more costly than the construction of it.
Wow.
So I can't name a capital project.
I want to ask a question though. Before I come over to Ms. Verasammy, I want to ask you one more question, and I don't want it to be. I'm going to give you a chance to talk as well. I want you to, because I know you have a lot of stuff to talk about. My question though, where are we getting this money from?
Well, Eddie, that's a very interesting question. I told you that we spent almost $1 trillion 2015 to 2019 to 2018, and now we got another 300.7 billion proposed for 2019. 3 ways we're getting the money. Number 1, taxation. The people of Guyana are paying more taxes today. Almost $60+ billion more in taxes are being raked in. And this is not just because of improved collection. This is as a result of taxing everything that can be taxed. I have noticed the DPI has put out a statement on Facebook that says no new taxes. When I saw the thing, I felt so elated, I started laughing. Where you going to tax? There's nothing left to tax. The GRA has gone to places like Bat Settlement on the west coast of Barbies and measure people's shallow bed.
Yes, they did that.
And tax them.
Yes, they did that.
The GRA officials have gone to the Coca at by the Abari Bridge. I've gone there to meet with the fishermen, gone out there,
Yes.
right? And they're weighing the fish in the basket. They set up a booth out there, they're weighing the fish in the basket when it's coming in so that they'll be able to tax.
Tell me this is a joke.
No, this is not a joke.
Tell me this is a joke.
The GRA has opened a center at an office at Marijuana in Region 1 where they have raked in $1.2 billion in fuel. $5,000 on every barrel of fuel that comes across from Venezuela. Now, when we were in government, the fuel was coming from Venezuela. It was easier for the people to get fuel from Venezuela. We only charge taxes when the fuel passed the mouth of the Pomeroon River, because then you know that it's coming down to town for sale. But once it is being used, as a matter of fact, as a minister, I visited out there. The police patrol boat was using the fuel. The army was using the same fuel. They've gone there and they've raked in $1.2 billion worth in taxes. And they've given the people a $200 million road. I went up there during the local government elections. So you collect $1.2 billion out of people's pocket in Region 1. And you give them $200 million in a concrete road and you tell them, look what I'm doing for you. But you still netted off $1 billion and you've gone. Where VAT is concerned, VAT was supposed to be a revenue neutral.
I don't want to take you there now.
Yes.
I don't want to take you
But
there
okay,
now.
let me just talk about taxation. Let me
Yeah.
tell you the other place where they're getting the money from. The other place they're getting the money from, taxes. Number 2, they're getting the money from our foreign reserve. Our foreign reserve account has been depleted. we left almost $600 million US dollars in the foreign reserve. They've brought it down to 420 something million dollars. So they're taking monies from the foreign reserve to finance some of the things that they're doing, because the economic sectors are not bringing in money.
No, but what are they financing? I'm not seeing anything.
Extravagance and waste. And then the third area that they're getting money from is borrowing. Borrowing. We are going to have a serious problem in this country if this government is allowed to continue the way they're going, because they are borrowing with the hope that we get in oil and we can pay back. Remember when we took this country in 1992, 153% of revenue was being used to service debt. We brought it down to 4%. The minister is saying now it's about 7%. But at the rate that they are borrowing.
So wait, in 3 years it went back to 7%.
7%. At the rate in which they are borrowing, if not checked, the leader of the opposition have already dealt with this whole issue that he doesn't believe Mr. Jordan's figure on the debt figure, because he failed to include in his calculations the overdraft at the Bank of Guyana, which is about 105 billion Guyana dollars, that's about 500 million US dollars. And he did not include the 30 billion syndicated bond, which is covered by a government guarantee, which is about 150 million US dollars, which takes you about 650 million that is not included in the debt figure. And then all the borrowing from the Islamic Development Bank and all the other institutions is really going to put us. So the economy is not bringing in money. So you're taxing the citizens, you're going to the savings on the foreign reserve, and you are borrowing. Sooner or later, it will become unsustainable. And the signals being sent by the international financial institutions, both the World Bank and the IMF, you would have seen some of the commentators in the newspapers writing about this, is that I think they are tone deaf. That's the language that we have to use. They are tone deaf. They're not listening, because we can get oil, and we can get oil money, and all of a sudden we can get these masses of wealth, and we can be able to pay back debt. But we have to manage our country in a sustainable way. Eddie, I have to say this. Under the PPPC, without oil, this country had 10 years of uninterrupted economic growth. Without oil, with sugar having problems, we were still doing well.
I want to bring you in here now, and I want to talk a little bit about the social benefits in the budget, including probably salary increases, and to talk about issues like what the pensioners would have received, issues of subsidy. I know a big thing. I had one person call in on a different TV show saying that while the budget is this huge and so on, I don't know what I'm getting to go to the supermarket or to the market to buy groceries to feed my family, because I'm not seeing anything there for single parents, for women, for youths, and so forth. I want to hear from you in terms of the economic benefits to the people. I want to hear what are your views in the budget, what is there in the budget for the average man in this country.
That's a very, very difficult question, because this budget doesn't have very much for the ordinary man and the ordinary woman to improve their conditions of living or their livelihood. Let me start at the bottom. When a country is taxing its people into prosperity, then those people are condemned to poverty in an indefinite, futuristic manner. So when you are, first I'm going to start this way. You took away, this government took away this subsidy that was given to pensioners, as in electricity and water. And in turn, you've gone and imposed VAT on electricity and water. You took away the subsidy. And then you tax that elderly citizen, electricity and water. But what is worse, the water now, from October of this year, you have to pay a fixed cost for water delivery. And if you use more than so many cubic tons of water,
Meters.
you have to pay an incremental amount of money per cubic gallon. Now, where in the world would anyone want to tax its senior citizens, people who have dedicated their lives in many different ways to bring us to where we are? That is how heartless they have become. Secondly, cost of living, whether we like it or not, has gone up. It's continuing to go up. And when we go out there and we are telling people that by mid-year the economy grew by 4.5%, and then you come at the budget and you said, oh, it has dropped to 3.4%, maybe to the economists that means something. Maybe it really does. And it should mean something. But when you come to people like me, my parents, my older aunts, single-parent women, single-parent men, ordinary working class person, the person who doesn't have a job and looking for a job and is unemployed, a person who has a job and working for minimum wages, I don't think that means anything to them. And when you go further to tell this country, oh, we only have single-digit inflation, 1.5%, it really means nothing, because at the end of the day, you may raise the minimum wage from $60,000 to $64,000, and you have to pay $40,000 of that, or $35,000 and $30,000 in rental. What is remaining there for a person with 5 children? How is she or he going to pay the water bills and the light bills and all these other bills that comes with it? Further, we were hoping that this government, after taxing people left, right, and center, would have looked at the VAT and probably start zero-rated some of the items that we had. For example, you're talking about, this budget speak about educating people. It speak.
To their credit, they did zero rate, or they did
What?
exempt.
How many?
Plain engines.
Really? Not only that.
And electric
Not only
motorcycles.
that. Not only that. I want to add to that. They've also said they are going to give exercise tax exemption and VAT exemption on those persons suffering with disability who can afford to buy a vehicle to enter easily. Well, I want to say this to you. For me, while that is grand and a good Christmas gift for the upper echelon and the elitists in the country, which is a minuscule few, I want to tell you something. Yesterday, a parent came to me with a document that says her child had major surgery on both of his legs and will be having physiotherapy, but is in need of a brace. This is something that will allow him to stand up, so he doesn't have to put a lot of weight on his
The injured leg.
the legs, and that it will allow him to start putting a little bit pressure at a time on it. 200, Ptolemy Reed Rehab Center said they're going to bill it at the cost of over $220,000. Tell me where this parents is going to get that. Now, if you had put in the budget for a person with stroke who needs a walker, a person with stroke who needs a wheelchair, person with stroke who needs a person with hearing aid, needs a hearing aid, and they can go to Georgetown Hospital, as it used to be under the PPP civic government, and get a free hearing aid, that's understandable.
For me, I thought that with regards to the vehicles for easy access to disabled persons, I think a smart initiative would have been given the tax break to persons who want to buy those vehicles
And
for
operate.
public transportation
Public
purposes.
transportation,
I
yes.
think that makes sense.
Well, Eddie, I plan to speak about that in the debate, because this good life is only for an elite few. Because the minister probably knows 2 or 3 people who could afford an Americanized
Probably.
vehicle,
Probably.
who they could ship down here, and because of their disability, get access to it. But the majority of persons with disability need, just like we have an ambulance service,
Yes.
we need to have a special service that you can call, and the person with the wheelchair or the disabled person could be picked up by these vans that are specially arranged in a public manner that will be able to bring and they make a small charge.
Maybe the taxi service could have been granted that
or whatever.
That's what I'm saying.
exemption, definitely.
But this is what you call catering to the elite.
Absolutely.
Catering to the elite. I listened to the Minister of Finance say the government will import the first electric vehicle
Last year,
in 2019. He said that this year.
Okay.
He will bring in the first electric vehicle. So the government, with all of the concessions that they granted for this green economy, so to speak, nothing happened. Nobody brought in any electric vehicles or any charging stations. We had all those exemptions and the goodies that were placed in 2018. So the government now has to take shame out of their face and buy at least one
But Bishop,
in 2019.
I'm not cutting you, sir, but the point is the Ministry of the Presidency has to spend $90-something million to bring in vehicles. Why don't they bring in some of those vehicles and start operating it in the ministry itself?
Well, I am not the Minister of State. Neither the Minister
But
of Finance.
I need to touch base on that salary issue.
Yes, yes, because I think we're almost out of time.
Yeah, I'm just
if the operator can indicate to us.
I'm going to touch on that and finish. What has happened with a normal, ordinary public servant? They have to wait incrementally after many, many years of working before they move from $60,000 to reach maybe 100.
They have to wait with the hope of moving.
Right, with the what you call increases if it is given each year. But on the back, through the back door, there have been scores of persons who have now been replacing those thousands of persons that they have fired from various positions across the public service. And they're bringing them through the back door, and they're paying them exorbitant wages, high wages on contract with the 22.5% gratuity, duty-free concessions, and you name it. And these are the questions we want to know: who they are, where they are, and what it is they are being paid to do, and what benefit this country is getting from their presence in the public service, where us taxpayers have to pay them that amount of money to do what for whom.
I wonder if the operator can give us an indication. We're just going for an hour, how much time we have remaining. But I want to quickly talk again, and I had some calls with regards to this issue. Sugar workers who are still employed by Gaisuku, are they anyway netted in this? Because based on what I'm getting is that in terms of this, the 7% and all these percentages, the sugar workers are not hearing anything. Thousands of them are out of jobs.
Gaisuku is being treated as a corporation that must generate their own income. So any increase in salaries will have to be announced by Gaisuku itself. There is no money in this announcement for Gaisuku current employees. Forget about the ones who have been severed. I noticed that the Prime Minister is now suggesting that severance will be paid on Friday of this week, as if he's doing the sugar workers a favor. And I hope that they also get the interest that has accrued to them by the delay in this payment as well, because the Parliament has approved the money a month ago for the payment of severance. And we would have thought that since that supplementary paper was passed, that at least the next 2-3 days the sugar workers would have gotten their money. But here it is. So there's no possibility that from the Treasury, Gaisuku workers will get money for increase in salary. So I don't see that. There's nothing in the budget that suggests that.
I want to give you guys a chance to wrap things up. I know we had so many other things to talk about. There are so many issues with regards to this budget that we may probably spend a day or two here talking about them. But I want to give you guys the opportunity to wrap things up generally with regards to the budget. We know the debates are coming up on starting on Monday, and I understand at the time there is some move, or has already been approved, to reduce the time for scrutiny of the budget generally.
Which was a big issue last year that caused a whole brouhaha, or a brouhaha, whichever term you want to use. And they've done the same thing. It is the business subcommittee that meets to allocate time for the consideration of the estimates for each agency. Even before the business subcommittee could meet, which is standing orders allowed for 7 days, the Prime Minister brought a motion to the Parliament limiting the consideration of estimates to 5 days.
Yep.
And we could say again, if you're proud of your budget, why are you hiding from the people? Why are you hiding from scrutiny? We are 32 MPs that are there representing the people of Guyana. If you have such an excellent budget and everybody's happy with your budget, and you have DPI working overtime to sell the goodies in your budget, why don't you just answer the questions? Spend the 7 days and answer the questions. Make the PPPC look like fools that we are the ones who are not doing our work and we don't know. You're the one that is so good, you're giving people a good life. Since you're giving the people the good life, why don't you allow us to take 7 days to prove, you can prove to the people of Guyana that you're giving them the good life by answering any question from any PPPC MP in the Parliament by giving us the time. But no, the Prime Minister has already moved the motion and they have voted on it. 5 days.
Your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is that Guyanese are gearing for another difficult year. While extravagance is going to be on things that are not going to be beneficial to them, I also want to assure this nation that the People's Progressive Party Civic is not going to rest a single moment, that we are going to continue to champion their rights. We are going to continue to advocate for what we believe to be a good life. We are going to make sure that our words are, their thoughts, your thoughts are heard, that babies are not going to be killed before they're born, or they're not going to be born and put in an antenatal unit where they're going to be bacteria that is going to kill them before they have a chance to live. We are going to work very hard to ensure that our elderly continue to have better representation and they can live life of dignity. We're going to continue to advocate for women to be empowered so that women will be given their due, that the single parent are going to be supported and provided with financial and other support they need for a good life so their children can continue to get an education and live better lives than them. We are not going to sit aside and allow the sugar workers to stand alone. We're going to walk every step that they walk with them and let their voices be heard. And as the opposition leader has clearly said, the PPP civic government is going to make sure when we get back into power come 2020, which we will, and we are going to make sure every single sugar worker given subsidy by the government until they can find themselves in jobs where they can provide for their families. That's a promise. The second promise, we're going to work, we just won the local government elections. We're going to work very, very hard with our councils to make sure that that evaluation and further imposition of taxes on our people, again in property taxes, we're going to fight it to the last to make sure it's not imposed on our people, because as we have established, they're taxing their people into prosperity so they can have an extravagant lifestyle. And this assurance I leave with our viewers, and let them know we are here for them and we will continue to stand with them, high or low.
Thank you very much, Bishop Juan Edghill, Member of Parliament, and of course Sheila Verasammy, also Member of Parliament, for the discussions here on budget. You, the people at home, I want to thank you very much for being part of this program. Of course, we have a long series of these discussions coming up, so I urge you to continue to stay tuned to MTV and probably all the television stations across the country. We're going to continue to talk about the budget and what exactly is the good life in it for people, how it's going to transform the economy, how it's going to empower people, and how they intend to build those sustainable communities. Based on what we're hearing so far, they're just promises. So until next time, I want to thank you very much for being part of the program, and thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Eddie, for having us.